Hey everyone. Well, welcome to our second video in the installment series around this around how to improve our use with EOS tools. And today we're going to focus on the scorecard. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and start with a very simple quote, which is what gets measured gets done. And this is from a guy named Tom Peters, big management consulting guru back in the 90s and 80s. And the thing that I love about this quote is because of the accuracy of it. When you have a great scorecard and everybody understands what you're measuring, you will start to see the improvement of those numbers just start to occur naturally as people understand what matters and they start to put more attention to it. So that's what we're aiming for. We want to be able to be great at measuring certain things. And I'm moving a couple of little things out of my way here, but all right, let's keep going. So before we go, let's just make sure that we are baselining together here and thinking about this the EOS way. So when we think about a scorecard, we start with our measurables, sometimes called KPIs. We want to identify the 5 to 15 metrics that our entire business revolves around. What are the 5 to 15 metrics that makes our department or our group or even the whole company successful or unsuccessful? I know we can measure 100 different things. We're trying to get to the 5 to 15 that really make a difference. Now, the second thing we want to do then is for each one of these numbers, we want to set what our goal is. What are we trying to get to? And what's a good week in, week out that we should be hitting? That's what we're aiming for goal. We want to be good at predicting and having clarity on what those numbers should be. After that, we go through the who. Who is responsible for each one of these numbers? You don't want to be looking around going, this is a problem. Who should tackle this? We want to say, okay, if weekly revenue is a problem, it's Ann's. If errors is a problem, it's David. And we basically know who has responsibility to make sure that these numbers shine. And then we're going to have 13 weeks over the course of the last 13 weeks to be able to see. And if it's doing better than the goal, it's green. And if it's worse, it's red. And it allows us to very quickly see where we need to concentrate our attention. Because in this example, if these few metrics are the things that really truly are determine the success or failure of a business, if we see something going red, we want to jump on it. It matters. So I just want to speak to the products of a great scorecard. When we have the scorecard working right, it gives us a great deal of clarity. It is the single place that we can look at and know if our business is working well or if it's not. And it helps drive focus and performance because all eyes go to that. And I don't care if it's a company-wide one or a departmental one or just a small group, having that scorecard really helps us have that clarity. The second big thing is it saves a great deal of time. It takes opinion out of the mix and replaces it with facts. Oh, how did we do last week? Well, I thought we did great. We really hustled and got that done versus, hey, we were supposed to build 12 widgets last week. We built 9. We got a problem. That's it. It's black and white. And then last piece is that it actually helps drive accountability. When each person knows which metrics they're responsible for, they will not only pay attention to it, but they will use their creative powers to be able to figure out ways to be able to have better numbers as they look forward because they're thinking about it. They're going home, they're paying attention to it. Maybe not going home and paying attention to it, and they're thinking about it wherever they go, which may include home. Now, there's just one more thing about the scorecard, and this is just kind of an additional motivation. This is me on my soapbox here a little bit, but we live in the data age. And if you think that data is not changing your whole career field, think twice. There's very few industries that are not being disrupted right now by data and automation. I'll just use some basic examples. Toll booths, now with Easy Pass and things, you don't stop. You don't hand money to a person anymore. Security guards, yeah, they're becoming a thing of history too because it's all cameras and things. Hotel check-in and delivery, even reviewing bank loans and contracts. Zoom Impact has disrupted everything from travel to office space. Data and automation is changing everything. And so the real question here is, do you want to be disrupted or do you want to be the disruptor? And the key for automation is data. The key for decision making is data. We got to get on the forefront of it. So that's why this is so important. All right, let's get into making a great scorecard. All right, the first thing you may not be expecting, the place we start is the accountability chart. No, we're not switching this into a whole different subject. The piece that we're trying to get into is that in order to have a great scorecard, I need to have a great accountability chart. If I have my accountability chart and I've got 15 different roles there listed all out there, I'm going to have a huge scorecard because I'm going to have 15 metrics tracking all the things that they do. If I can basically get just a really concise accountability chart that really tracks what a person is responsible for, then I'm going to be able to have a handful of metrics to really show if we're being successful in our business. So we're gonna go through how to build a great scorecard through example. And so I'm going to use one of my former company structures. We'll use software as a service, a SaaS company, and in this fictional company, kind of fictional, we've got an accountability chart with each of these different departments, and let's say every single department has anywhere from 4 to 8 metrics per department. So I've got 6 different departments here. Every single one has 4 to 8 metrics. And so because of that, I get this scorecard. And this is kind of average looking. I'll say a lot of places where I see my clients start, it looks very simple, very similar. I mean, 36 metrics in this example, and that's 4 to 8 metrics per leadership team member. So doesn't seem crazy, right? But 36 metrics tells me that it is still too much. I don't have command of my business. And here's a couple of very simple ways that when you look at any scorecard, you just got to ask yourself these 2 questions. Does the leadership team, when they have this many metrics, have command of their business? Can you tell in a snapshot if the business last week was healthy or unhealthy? And I would say in this case, we got a lot of red, a lot of green, hard to tell. The second piece is when you start to think about, okay, if this is the scorecard, when we want to IDS, how effective is that going to be? In this situation, we've got 15 red scorecard items. We probably won't clear 15 issues. And if our whole business's success and failure revolves around this scorecard, and I've got 15 red areas, man, I should have a lot of major issues to be talking about during my IDS time. I'm not going to have enough time. This is a problem. So our goal is to take this very real world type of example and figure out how to make this a great scorecard, because we have all the pieces we need to be able to go do that. What we're looking for is simplicity and clarity in the business. So the number one step that we've got, that the first way to improve it is we're going to look where we have funnels, and we're going to reduce too many steps in the funnel. So if I start with the marketing ones, let's take a look at this. I have press mentions, okay, and social media posts, great. And then web visits, which I imagine I want my press, my social media to be driving to web visits, all right. And then those web visits may drive towards inbound leads, and then I have my qualified leads. This is kind of a funnel. It's not necessarily an exact funnel, because press could have more than purposes than just creating leads, and inbound leads may come from more places than the web. But generally, this is starting to build a bit of a funnel. It's starting to show me redundant information. If the top of my funnel is not right, I know the bottom is not going to be right. Similarly, if I look at the sales one, outbound calls, hopefully those will lead to sales meetings, which hopefully lead to proposals out, which hopefully lead. This is a very natural funnel. This is great. We want to see this information, don't we? Yes, sales does, but not the entire leadership team. It's too much information, and it creates a lot of noise. So what we want to be able to do is we want to start to break this down. Maybe the leadership team, sales needs to know every step of the funnel. They got to be optimizing that funnel and paying attention and making sure they're staying ahead of stuff. But maybe the leadership team just needs to know the amount of dollars that are in legal. If we were able to reduce this view, it basically gives us a single indicator about whether sales is looking good or bad towards the near future. It also puts a lot of pressure on our sales lead, because they got to GWC their role. If I'm only looking at one metric, I'm not looking past them. I'm not looking at them saying, okay, hey, you're doing a great job, Rick, but gosh, I think the outbound call is a problem. Our sales meetings are not converting enough. Or no, the salesperson is going to have to basically be responsible for all of that. And when I see red on my one metric in sales, it's going to create a lot of urgency, because I got one metric for sales. So this is how we're going to start to reduce all the noise that we've got. And we're going to start to say sales is responsible for their funnel. Give me my indicators that allow me to get a very simple view of things. And if I do this, I should be able to do this across the different points. Does everybody really need to know how many press mentions we had last week, or how many social media posts we had? And weekly revenue shouldn't be there, but maybe we just need to know how many qualified leads as a leadership team, to just make sure that we're seeing flow of good leads coming in. We do the same thing with development. Maybe we don't need to basically see the number of stories completed and number of code refactors and number of tests conducted and the number of releases. Maybe I can make it a lot simpler. So we'll run across the board on this. The reason why this is such a big deal is because just by reducing funnel items, in this example, we would reduce the scorecard by nearly 1/3. And more importantly, it gets rid of a lot of red in the scorecard because like I was saying before, if the top of the funnel is red, then the next level down is going to be red. The next level down is going to be red. The next level is going to be down. It's going to be red. And so now I've got 6 red metrics all telling me the same thing, which is the top of my funnel is insufficient or is a problem. So when we basically can get rid of these funnel metrics, it allows us to reduce the scorecard by quite a bit and allows these, takes out in particular a lot of the red that's creating a lot of noise for us. All right, well, let's keep going. Let's go to the next area. What else can we do to help reduce the noise in the scorecard? Well, the second one is what we call I call FYI metrics. And these are metrics that we just kind of want to put out there so people are aware. For instance, in my organization, the people that were responsible for renewing clients and the contract was coming up and they need to renew for another year, they wanted to let us know, like, they're really busy. You know, this upcoming quarter, we got to do $1.8 million in renewals, just so you're aware how busy we are. Okay, that's great. How many lines of code we produce? Everybody should know we got 21 million lines of code out there. Now it's up to 21.6. Like, what? All right, that's good. What are we going to do with that? Like, if you're doing $1.8 million renewals, okay, that's great. Good luck. Lines of code. Okay, great. That's a lot of code. Nice job. Cash balance, similar type situation. Does everybody really need to know if our cash balance is 1.1 or 1.3? I doubt the operations person has to be focused on that. This is where we start to take a look at these FYI metrics and we want to kind of remove them. Now, I know some people are like, I want to see that. I need to see the cash balance for my own sanity. I can't take it out. I need to know the lines of code. Well, if you really need to have these things, I'd like to take them out, but if we really need to have them, oops, what happened there? We can operationalize them a little bit. And the way that we do this is we try to focus on the change week to week. So if instead of basically seeing what the total renewal amount is each week, what did the change occur? All right, it went up by 200, then it went up by 100, then it went up by 100. All right, I see it's growing. That's great. If I take a look at the lines of code, okay, we're doing 50,000 a week. That's a much more meaningful average or number than seeing that we went from 2.6 million to 2.65 million. It allows me to have a much smaller view so I can see the ups and downs. Similar thing with cash balance. I can see what changed. Did it go up or down? I want to go up every week. What's happening in that sense. So this is a way that we can operationalize some of these FYI metrics by focusing on the change, not necessarily just showing what the total is. All right. A third thing that we have to do, and this is just, we need to gut check relentlessly. If we take a look at some of the stats that we have, they're just not meaningful. And I'll use an example here that we used to put our clients in as color code as green, yellow, or red. And we had some logic behind it, but it was green, yellow, or red. And what I learned very quickly was yellow didn't have a lot of meaning to me. And in this example, we can see that yellow has gone straight down, woohoo, except red has gone straight up. So we got a problem. The fact that we have less yellow is not really meaningful. The fact that I've got more red or I've got more green, that is the thing that I want to pay more attention to. So this is where we might look at this and say, okay, we're going to cut down on the number of metrics that we have here because it's just redundant information. It's not quite a funnel, but it's pretty similar. And ultimately in my organization, I realized all I cared about was the ones in red. That's the only thing I paid attention to. In the case of accounts payable, similar type situation. Do we really need everybody to see how much we're paying in bills? It's great. Everybody wants to know more information. So great, let's put it in there. But it creates noise. It creates noise and it prevents us from paying attention to the metrics that we need to pay attention to. Noise is a problem. So if we remove the FYI stuff, we get rid of kind of the, hey, you should know some things. I kept a couple of them in there. And we basically do the gut check metrics. We get rid of the kind of the green, yellow, red stuff and just drop it down to red. We've reduced our scorecard now in total by 50%. And more importantly, we're down to 6 red items. That's a big deal because if my business comes down to, what do we got here, about 16, 17 metrics here, and I've only got 6 red items, I can IDS that in a week. I can focus on my time on making sure that these 6 things are being worked on and going to get better. But we can do better, I think, and let's keep going. Another thing that we can do is we can use ratios. So for instance, we can see that we won deals and we lost deals. Well, if we basically just combine that, what's our win rate versus seeing, okay, we won 4 and lost 4. In my head, I might go, okay, so we're at a 50% win rate in that situation. I'm going to do that calculation naturally. If I just basically switch to the ratio, it allows me to get a very clear data. I'm not having to do it in my head, and I get to knock down another metric to reduce the noise. All right. Another thing that happens is, and this happens a lot, is where we have lumpy data. And you see this in sales quite a bit, right? So we don't have sales for a week, then we have a good week, and then we have a great week, and then we have a bad week, then we have an okay week. How are we doing? And it can be very difficult to kind of really get a good sense, a real pulse on how the business is operating. So, and I will say, sometimes people want to do this year-to-date view of things. And if we say that the company goal is to do $2 million in 2021, and it shows our year-to-date is at 428K, and it's the middle of April. All right, so is 428K in the middle of April good on a $2 million number? Like, it's not really that great a number. Here's a better way that we should be doing this. Use the average column. So for the people using traction tools or 90, and I'm sure the new EOS 1 program is going to do this. If we use the average, it allows me to see that my goal might be 38K a week, but I'm averaging 40K. I'm above where I was expecting to be. I'm ahead of the curve, which it's hard to tell when I look week to week. Similarly, there's another way that I can go do this, which is the idea of rolling averages. So I just take the previous 4 weeks, not necessarily the full average over the last 13, and just have that roll. So I'm always looking at the last 4 weeks. And when I do that approach, it's going to basically give me a much more balanced view of how I'm trying to go do stuff. So we deal with lumpy data that can be meaningless with us, and really start to leverage averages or rolling averages to give us more meaningful information. And then last but not least is that good old accountability chart. If I take a look at this one, this is going towards the support area, right? So we might want to look at the number of open cases, our average open time, how many tier 1 and tier 2 escalations, up kind of a funnel, but okay. And I want to see what our average rating is. Well, at the end of the day, support's responsibility is to provide that client support and do best in class. And so we may actually say, listen, to make sure that we're doing our client support, we want to pay attention to the number of open cases, and to make sure we're doing best in class, we want to see what those average ratings are per support. And so this is where I can just reduce the amount of information that's coming into the leadership team to really showing me the key information that we need to have here. So going back to the accountability chart and making sure that the metrics that we're paying attention to is really tying back to the accountability chart. Now I keep talking about it from a leadership team perspective, but this is the same mechanics that I would use across my departments or smaller groups. It's the same structure that I'm going to do. It's just, we don't need as a group to see all this information. We want to basically see a reduced view. And in the process of reduced view, it increases our dependencies on making sure that each of our leaders or managers are really in control of their data. So if we do those steps, if we take those 6 kind of actions to whittle things down, it really brings us down to 13 items on the scorecard. There's only 3 items to IDS. And when I look at this, I've got a very clear view of the business. Business is doing pretty well. Weekly revenue is slipped a little bit, so we got to go pay attention to that. But and our leads are a little bit on the downside. We've got too many clients in red. So we've got a few things that we've got to IDS and focus on. But other than that, the business has got a lot of help behind it. So that's a good thing. This is what we want to try to get to. So summary of the trimming methods. Number 1, we're going to reduce our steps in the funnels. We're going to reduce, if we got 5 different things kind of narrowing down, I only want 1 or 2. Number 2, I'm going to reduce those FYI metrics. Let's get that out of here. We don't necessarily need that. Number 3, we're going to remove those metrics that do not survive the gut check for necessity. These are very similar to FYI type stuff. It's just like, do I need to have accounts payable? Does this group really need to see that? We're going to try to streamline our comparative data with ratios. We're going to normalize our lumpy data with averages or rolling averages. And we're going to go back to that accountability chart and make sure that we're looking at the right stuff that matters for the business. If we do these 6 things, we're going to basically reduce a tremendous amount of noise out of our scorecard. And in the process of getting that noise out, we're going to have a greater command of what matters for my department or organization or even the entire business. Now, there's one other concept I want to talk about, which is this idea of lagging versus leading indicators. And anybody who works on data and scorecards would say, you want leading indicators, you want leading indicators. Absolutely true. So let's just go through a quick definition. A lagging indicator tells you anything that's occurred in the past. If I look at last week's revenue, great, we did, I don't know, $100 last week. There's not much we can do about it. I now know that we did $100. Thank you for the update. That's great. How many hours worked? How many items were manufactured? These are lagging indicators telling us how we did. A leading indicator gives us data that gives us time to respond. So if I start to pay attention to the number of deals in the pipeline, that's going to let me know that if it's really low, I'm going to have low revenue coming in the future. It gives me time to be able to say, okay, we got to figure out how to get the numbers in the pipeline up before it becomes a real revenue problem. If I take a look at orders and backlog, oh, my backlog is getting really, really big. I'm having a delivery problem. We need more production. I can act. And so leading indicators gives us time to be able to respond, not just looking at it historically. We want to run our business on leading indicators. The better we get at leading indicators, the more time we have to fix things when things start to go wrong. If we're only looking at lagging indicators, it's like, oh, that was a mess. Wish it wasn't. We don't have any time to respond. So that's the difference between leading and lagging indicators. We want to be able to get good at it. So leading indicators, this is our early warning system. So the first thing that we want to do is we want to get a scorecard in place, because the bigger problem that I see everywhere is that we don't have scorecards. So number one, get your scorecards in place. Once you've got it kind of in a healthy position, then start to figure out how to get some leading metrics in place. So if I have, for instance, the revenue closed last week, that's a good lagging metric for me. But now I can get a leading measure by taking a look at how much, what's the dollar value of the deals in legal. If I can see that I've got this much that's about to fall in, I can react earlier. It gives me more visibility, more early warning about issues. And then once we get good with getting some of those leading metrics in there, then we want to increase the length of that visibility. So right now it might just be, okay, I trust it. Once it goes into legal, I know that we're going to get a certain amount of revenue in about 2 weeks. Great, I trust that. But now, once that starts to become reliable, maybe I'm going to take a look at the number of proposals, the dollar value of the proposals that we have out there. And I know that from proposal to actual order in hand, that's going to be more like 4 weeks. So I'm starting to increase the length of that visibility. That's what we want to do in time. Don't try to get to the third goal right away. Start with getting a scorecard in place, then start to figure out what the leading metrics are, and then try to extend the visibility. So here's what we're doing. I know I'm repeating this, but it's so key for us. We're going to start, get a scorecard in place, measurables, goals, owners. We're going to then trim it down. We're then going to increase our visibility with leading metrics. And then what we want to get to is a scorecard that we really trust and love. It's one that we look at and it tells us what the future of our business is really going to be. All right, perfect. The video that's coming up after this now is about the L10 meetings and IDSing. It's about the issues track. And the reason why this becomes such a big deal is because now that I know who's responsible for what, and I now know I can see exactly how things are happening, there are going to be issues. There are going to be things that cause our scorecard to move into red. And in order to basically get them to be green again, we need to have our forums to talk about how do we fix things. We got to figure out how to drive to a solve quickly and effectively. So that's going to be the subject of the next video. I appreciate everybody's time right now. If you have any questions or want to dive more into this, just let me know. I can be reached at rick@outpaceenterprises.com. And I'd love to talk about this because I have such a deep passion for it. I appreciate everybody's time. Thank you.